This tutorial demonstrates how to compare Revit and ETABS models using checking rules. We're going to start by opening an existing Visicon project. This project was covered in the previous tutorial where we showed you how to merge a Revit and an ETABS model. If we go in the project browser under the Models tab, we can see that the two models are listed. Here's our ETABS model and here's our Revit model. Our objective in this tutorial is to show you how to use the checking rules to be able to quickly visually verify proper and consistent component assignments, in particular your slab thicknesses, and to make sure that you have the same column dimensions assigned at every location. What we're going to use are checking rules. So let's just quickly do a review of what the checking rules look like and how you define a rule before we apply the templates. So if we take one of these columns, we can see here that this is we happen to pick one of the Revit columns. Each Revit column has properties, instance parameters, and family properties. We're going to go to the B property, right click, copy this variable. We're going to create a rule. We want this to be columns with dimension B equals 1.5 feet. So this is the rule that we want to create. We can use uniqueness rules, and that's covered in different tutorials. Here we're going to use an expression. So we're going to paste that variable. So it says family dimension B equals 1.5 feet. Now for each of these rules, if the condition is met and it passes, we can give the model some characteristics. In this case, we're going to assign it color yellow. And so you can see I have now colorized each of my columns in my model that meet this criteria, where the Revit family dimension B equals 1.5 feet. So this principle of a checking rule is what we're going to use to automate the color assignment to all slabs and columns in our two merged models. We're going to achieve that in an efficient manner by importing a predefined set of rules that we've saved as a template. So here I'm going to go under File, I say Apply Template. We're going to go to and start with a slab and wall colorization template that I'd saved. In this template, you can see that it loaded all these new rules, and the rules are written no different than what we just went through. So here I have a rule that says colorize 7.5 inch slabs, or actually these are slabs that are less than 7.5 inches. If I go to my 8-inch slabs, it says thickness equals 8 inches and they're yellow. One thing to note here is that you'll see that I have one variable that I'm calling here, thickness equals 8 inches, and we're lucky that in this instance, both the Revit slabs, so here I'm selecting an ETABS slab, that's a small slab panel. I can always tell it's ETABS because the slabs are discretized into these smaller panels, whereas the underlying slab here is the Revit slab. Here we have a little bit of offset. On this level, you see they're actually exactly aligned. So again, coming back to our ETABS slab, if I scroll down under the properties, we can see that it has its thickness defined using the property thickness. Fortunately, the same exact component type, so this is a Revit slab, also uses the property thickness. So in this case, we can define universal rules that use one variable, thickness, and can assign different behavior to the slab. So we could go through each of these rules individually, or we can group them into what's called a rule set. So the rule set, you can see this one that I've selected has 11 rules assigned to it. This is just a generic rule set where I'm applying the colorization to the standard slabs based on their thickness assignment. This next rule set has an additional filter applied. So this filter says only show me slabs and then apply these rules. So this makes it very easy for me to be able to isolate and identify all of my slabs, and it has now consistently applied a predetermined color to each thickness assignment. As you can see now, it's very, very effective and easy for me to be able to go through, rotate, and do a quick visual inspection of my merged Revit and ETABS models to identify where I have consistent slab assignments and where they might be off. So I see, if I zoom into this corner right here, I see some different slab thicknesses with different assignments. I could now drill down into this location and validate whether my modeling assumptions are correct and within the tolerances that I'm willing to accept. In conclusion, how you can use the checking rules to be able to quickly isolate and assign uniform colors to the various slabs. So now let's move on to columns. Columns are a little more interesting. What we're going to do is now go to File. We're going to go to Apply Template. And this time we're going to apply our column colorization template. You see that here it's now imported some additional rules. And let's expand these rules because I think these are quite interesting. If we take this 24 by 24 inch columns and you see that it's selected those columns and has assigned this color to it. Unlike the slabs that I showed you where both originating modeling systems, ETABS and Revit, use the same parameter, when it comes to columns, Revit and ETABS use different parameters to define geometry. So for us to be able to identify and uniformly color code columns of the same geometry, we're using a compound expression. So here we can see it says section B equals 24 inches and section D equals 24 inches. So this is to isolate 24 by 24 inch columns. Or the family dimension B equals 24 inches and family dimension H equals 24 inches. So this is now the right side expression, similar to the first expression that we created for that Revit column. The right side, where we're referring to the family parameters, are picking up the Revit columns. The ones to the left, section B, these are picking up the ETABS columns. If we come in here, open the object properties, we can see this is the ETABS column we've selected. If I scroll down, you can see that the geometry is simply defined under section parameters B and D. If I use Tab to select the Revit column, the Revit properties are under the family parameters. Again, we see family, dimension, B, and H. So this is how you can write very flexible expressions to pick up even consistent parameters or characteristics in different models that are defined using different parameters. I'm going to close my object properties and just look at the model itself. So similar to what we did for slabs, it's more efficient. Instead of just isolating and trying to identify each individual column type, we've created a rule set. If I expand my filter, this has a filter applied that isolates all the columns. And in addition, the starting condition, I say isolate columns, make all of them red. And then I go through and I apply these 9 individual colorization rules. And so what you can see is what's left as red are the non-primary structural columns that I'm not concerned about validating at this point, because these are, let's say, small HSS field profiles that are in my Revit model but would not be modeled as part of the main structural system in ETABS. So I'm ignoring those. So at this point, I can kind of apply the uniform colorization, and I can very effectively go through and do a visual inspection to see if there are any issues. And I can see in most cases, this particular set of models are very, very consistent. However, if I drill down here, you can see that in fact I have one location, actually several locations, where I have a mix. There's inconsistency between what was modeled in ETABS and what was modeled in Revit. So here I can see I've picked up the Revit column, which is a 24 by 24, so 2 foot by 2 foot. If I again use Tab, it's now picking up the ETABS, underlying ETABS column, and the ETABS column is a, let's see, there must be another column there we go. So here there's an 18 by 18 inch column that's hidden here as well. So that's what's throwing things off. So one of the two models has a mistake. I can now very quickly identify those modeling inconsistencies, track down whether it's the ETABS one and the Revit one, mark it up, send an RFI to either the engineer or the modeling individual, and make the correction. So in conclusion, you can use Visicon's checking rules to very effectively create these rule sets, apply those rule sets to any set of merged models that you have, and within seconds be able to color code and isolate the components that you're interested in validating. Thank you for watching our video. Contact sales@visicon.com or sales@adaptsoft.com to request your free intro version. The checking rules that I showed you require a professional Visicon license and are not accessible in the free viewer version.